Hey guys, it's Carolina here from KarolinasKrafts and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I was hoping to make some fall cards using some scraps, mainly from this collection that I have, which is called Fall Fever. I have a couple of larger scraps and a couple of little cut aparts in here that I thought maybe I could use on a project. So I do have that, but then I also have, if you guys watched my fall kind of what's in my stash video, I have this random fall folder of scraps of paper also. So I thought we could figure out maybe to use up some of these scraps as well. And then I pulled some solid scraps, and this is, you know, kind of fall themed kind of colors. And if I do need others, I do have this dark brown 65-pound cardstock as well. So yeah, first I want to tackle this though. And I did cut my card bases. So my card bases measure 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. If you want to have a pre-made one, if you are making it yourself, you just take an 8 1/2 by 11 size piece of paper. On the 8 1/2 inch side, you're going to square at 4 1/4. Then on the 11-inch side, you're going to cut at 5 1/2. And there you go. You get 2 card bases from 1 card. So yeah, this is what you get. So I am just gonna, I don't know, walk you guys through this. I might just do a voiceover, we'll see. But I will walk you guys through kind of what I am doing. Alright guys, so here I am just showing you guys the paper that I'm going to be using. So I want to use the Fall Fever collection, which is my main priority, and I am using some brown cardstock. This is just like a scrap piece I had in my stash. You guys will see later I will use dark brown because I ran out of this one, but it's fine. I also took out these little note cards, little pumpkins, and I could embellish with them if I want to, and I took out some stamps, but you guys know I'm not really a stamper. So we're going to move on, and we're going to cut these little teeny cut aparts that were in the collection. Oh, by the way, I cut the brown cardstock down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So that fits perfectly on my white card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm just trying to figure out how to use up these scraps right now. So I have a bunch of these strips. I have the one full-size paper, which I also want to use, but I also want to use the strips, so I thought maybe I could start putting together 2 cards at once, which actually turns out that now I'm putting together this vertical strips card, and I really like how that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and cut those patterned papers to 5 1/4 height. So the thickness works out just fine for actually my card. My strips and my scraps worked out great, but the height needed to be 5 1/4 to fit onto my cardstock mat and my card base. So I cut those down, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue them down. So I'm applying my ATG tape, and you guys know I love my ATG tape runner anytime I am making cards. I love this thing. It's fantastic. A lot of you guys last time I shared it said that your ATG used to gunk up a lot and you guys didn't like using it. Well guys, let me tell you, mine did too. Before I learned how to use it was number 1, and number 2, that was when I was using the rolls that kind of came with the ATG tape, but I get completely different rolls from a different company now, and they have been fantastic. So I do have those linked down below in case you guys want to give your ATG tape another try. But this whole entire video, it did not gunk up at all, and I love it. It's so great for making cards. It doesn't make my card all hard and crunchy, and it's just great. So now, after I place down these vertical patterns, I'm trying to figure out how I can make that Happy Harvest cut apart kind of stand out. So I decided on this brown kind of pattern paper, like this little wooden pattern paper, but I still wanted to add it onto brown cardstock. And I was like, I don't know, because brown on brown, but it actually worked out really well. They're slightly different shades of brown, and I just love having the outside cardstock matte layer. It really, really, really does make a huge difference when you are making these cards. Like, guys, try making a card without that matte layer and then make one with, and you're gonna see a world of a difference. Like, it really does make a huge difference. I also took out these die cuts that I have in my stash just from some other Echo Park collection, which some of them don't really go with this collection, some kind of match, but I decided I wasn't going to use any of those and I was just going to use that Happy Harvest cut apart. So I am going to mat that onto some of that brown cardstock as well. Like I said, anytime you're making these cards, mat every single piece of pattern paper and cut apart onto the same kind of colored cardstock, and it really makes it pop and stand out, and it just looks so like nice and fancy, and I don't know, it looks really good. I am going to flip over my Happy Harvest cut apart in a little bit, and I will add a couple of layers to that with some of my leftover cardstock scraps. That acorn you guys saw is a little like chipboard element from Target, from like the Spritz brand. It came in like this little round container years ago, and I just haven't used it all up, so I have a ton. So I'm going to use up some of my scraps that I had cut off from those longer pieces of paper that I glued onto my card mat for this card so far, and cutting them down to fit onto the back of that cut apart just to add 2 layers because I needed it to be the same height as that wooden paper that's on my card base as well. And then I'm just going to stick that down after I applied some ATG tape, and then I'm going to put down my acorn, and I realized that that actually is like an adhesive acorn. So I peeled off the backing, glued it down, realized maybe I should have used a hot glue gun, so I'm going to turn that on now, but it actually ended up sticking anyway, so I didn't need it, and my hot glue gun dies fairly quickly because I guess it wasn't charged. So then I am looking through my stash for some jemmies and decide to add these ones to my card, just a few of them, and my light kept turning off for some reason, my filming light, and I don't know why. But anyway, I am sticking down these jemmies with some glue, just adding a little dab of glue and then sticking it down just for some extra kind of sturdiness, and so it doesn't, you know, go anywhere. But I think that turned out really cute. So then I'm going to add that cardstock mat to my card base, which is the white card base, and it's going to have like a white outline, and it turned out really stinking cute. Oh, and I cut off a little bit of the edge here because when I was cutting it, I guess I didn't do the best job, but it's fine. I gotta clean it up at some point anyway, right? So I stick that down to my card base, and that is card number 1. And I really like how it turned out. All of these cards actually turn out really cute. And then I'm showing you guys that I will go back to my cards later on when I'm done with all these cards to see what other scraps I have left, to see what I could put inside the card as like an additional embellishment, which I do off camera because my phone does end up dying. But anyway, now I wanted to use up that full 6x6 sheet of paper. So again, my cardstock mat, the brown pattern paper, measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and that other paper, the pattern paper that I just layered on, that orange one, measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm trying to pair it with some other scraps that I have in my scrap stash here for this collection, and I just cut off the circle, make some kind of this rectangle, and then I decide I really like it, so I put that onto some brown cardstock also. I'm going to cut that out, and like I said, mat every single thing. It really does make a huge difference. So I go ahead and cut that out, make sure to leave a brown border, and then I'm going to stick down the orange pattern paper as well because I do like how this card is coming together so far. And a lot of the time that's kind of what I do. I will stick things down, not even sure if they're going to work, and then I just figure it out. Like, sometimes that's all you got to do. So I did end up using this die cut from the Echo Park collection that says Autumn. So those die cuts that I have on the side there in the corner, this autumn one is from that. and I felt like it went with the red colors in that leaf paper that I'm also going to add to my card. So I went ahead and I put that die cut onto some brown cardstock, cut that out into a rectangle, and then I was like, wait, I have a stub punch. Let me use my stub punch and see if that will work to help me punch out these little like stub pieces on this die cut, which it did work. This first one I cut a little too small, but it's fine. It did work out instead of me having to fussy cut those pieces. I mean, you could totally do it. You could totally fussy cut it. It'll be just fine. And mine turned out great. I had the stub punch. Why not use it? So then I'm also trying to think of a way to include some more of those like little chipboard elements. I was thinking a pumpkin and then a leaf I was thinking because of the leaf paper, but I end up going with an acorn, which you guys are going to see that once I stick all those elements down, my acorn ends up sticking off the card, like off to the side of the card, and I was like, man, I really should have glued that more to the left, but I ended up fixing it and just cut off that acorn a little bit, but it's fine. It still looks like a really cute card, which you guys will see. And you guys are seeing here, I'm still struggling trying to figure out which chipboard element to use, but again, I decide on that acorn. So I'm going to go ahead and stick everything down onto my card mat so far, and this is where I should have put this farther to the left, but it's okay. I do add some other scraps of paper under that autumn die cut because I need 2 more layers to match the same height of that leaf paper. So I end up adding that to the back of that die cut, and this is just another scrap that I had in my stash that I wasn't going to use on a card base because I really don't like the color. But hey, you know what? Use what you have and use that as background layers. They make great, fantastic scraps. So I'm going to go ahead and stick that down. And now I'm like, okay, let's add the acorn. And I'm like, oh man, I should have moved everything over to the left. I was trying to figure out if I could put the acorn on the left instead of the right, but I really just like it on the right. So I am marking it with my pencil where I kind of need to cut straight down. And then I am going to go ahead and stick that down. Here my hot glue gun is working. I think it pretty much dies soon after that, but it is working, so I do glue that down, and I leave that brown border on the card because I like that brown border, and the intention was not to cover it up, so I needed to cut that acorn to fit on my card base, and to still leave that brown border. So then I go ahead and add ATG tape to the back of my card mat, and then I put it onto my card base. Realize as I'm trying to figure out what jemmies to use that my other jemmy was falling off a little bit and I needed a little bit more help and sturdiness, so I added some hot glue to that. And then I found these jemmies in my stash and I'm like, ooh, these are great. Different not shapes, they're all the same shape, different sizes and different shades of like orange and greens and stuff, but I settle on the orange because I don't know, orange is just the go-to color for fall, and I just like the fall jemmies in orange. So there is card number 2. Now for card number 3, I am opening up this other pack of cardstock I realize I don't have any other scraps that are kind of large enough, so I do open up that dark brown pack, which is fine. I mean, it's here for me to use. I have it for a reason, right? So might as well use it. It's okay for me to open up another pack if I need it. So I go ahead and I cut that down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 to be my cardstock matte layer. I mean, actually, I think I cut it a little longer. I'm telling you the correct size right now, but originally I had cut it longer and then I needed to cut it shorter. But the correct measurement is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I realize I also have this larger piece, larger scrap piece, so I do want to see if I could use that, which I was trying to figure out how to use that, and I have that other blue kind of cut apart, and then I also have this green cut apart that says just cozy vibes, and I really wanted to use it, but I end up using, what do I end up using? I don't even know what I end up using. I guess we'll see as this video progresses. But I decided I was going to use up some of those strips instead, and I'm trying to organize them onto my cardstock mat to see how they will fit, and I realize I kind of need some longer pieces because they don't quite fit, especially that plaid one right there. You guys can see at the top part it doesn't completely cover everything, but I do like kind of the pattern, so I decided I'm gonna go with it. But before I do that, I needed to cut down another cardstock mat to 4 by 5 1/4 because I wanted because this is going to help me arrange my papers, and then I could cut off the edges, and then when I glue that to that other cardstock mat, I'll have that brown border. So this one's just a little shorter than the other one that I was originally aligning everything on and trying to see if it will work. So I go ahead and I'm using my wet glue for this because sometimes wet glue is easier if you don't have like a large kind of surface area and you don't know how much glue you need. And I did decide to take out this mat so I don't glue it to my desk this time, or to something else. I think last time I glued it to my my guillotine paper cutter. It wasn't too bad cleaning it, but still. I don't clean this mat. This is like my mat for this kind of stuff, so that is fine. It'll just dry and it is fine. So I am gluing down these strips of paper and filling up all of those kind of brown spots on the cardstock mat. I do have some of the corners I need to worry about, but I will worry about those after I now get these cut out. So I'm going to flip the paper over and I'm going to cut everything out on the back hand side, all of those edges, and I will go back with those pieces I just cut off and use those on a couple of corners on the cards. I literally just need like a little teeny scrap on the corners just to fill in that spot so it's not just brown, and you guys are seeing that right here. Like, it's literally such a tiny spot, but I wanted to cover it up, so I just used that scrap that I had cut off. So I'm just going to glue those on there and add those on there to make the card look even more finished. You guys can see that plaid paper still at the top. It was not quite long enough, so in a little bit I will end up cutting off 1/4, I think, total from each side, and it's going to leave a larger brown cardstock border, but you guys will see I will fix that later on as well. But I did cut it down a little bit, so now it doesn't look as bad. You can't really tell that, you know, I didn't have enough paper to cover it, so it's fine. And then I decided I'm going to stick this down onto that brown cardstock mat, and then I'm going to try, I think, to figure out what kind of part I want. And I really wanted to use that Just Cozy Vibes. My whole point of making this card was to use that Just Cozy Vibes, but I couldn't figure out how to make it work. I'm trying with the orange, trying some squares, and I'm just like, you know, I really don't like it. I decided maybe I will add it onto the brown cardstock mat. Maybe that will make it a little bit better, but I'm still not loving it. So I end up not using any of those squares that I had just cut out. I still have them on the side. I need to figure out what to do with some more of the scraps I still have from this collection. But I was trying to figure it out really, really hard. I was trying to work on it, but couldn't make it work. As you guys could see here, I'm still trying to figure it out. But I end up doing just something different. I end up going into, I think, the die cuts, and I find a die cut that I like, and I end up putting that onto a brown cardstock mat, fussy cutting around it. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one we're going to use. Autumn is in the air. So I'm going to put that onto the brown cardstock mat, fussy cut around it, and if you guys know anything about me, I do not like fussy cutting, but I do it every single time I make these scrap cards. I end up fussy cutting something. I don't like it, but somehow I always end up doing it, and it's really just because I'm telling you that cardstock mat makes a huge difference, and I literally do it on every single piece that I'm kind of like adding onto the cards. So I'm just fussy cutting this out. It is a fun, cute shape. I like the color that it has. I like the craft cardstock background on it, and I think it looks great on the card. But before I put this down onto my card base, I decided I am actually going to cut off some of that brown cardstock mat, leave a 1/4 inch total, and then I'm going to cut out a craft cardstock layer, because I decided I want some of that peeking out now, and that will also tie in some of that die cut that we were going to stick down as well. But I really didn't like that super thick brown cardstock border, so I fixed it. It's fine. Now we just double layered it onto a cardstock mat, and it worked out just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down this die cut that says Autumn's in the Air again. I burnish that, make sure it stays on my card, and then I'm picking out some jemmies from my stash. I believe those are from Hobby Lobby. It was like a big pack from Hobby Lobby at some point. And I'm arranging them how I want them. My camera died at some point, I think, or no, my hot glue gun, as you guys can see, is not working. So I end up using Fabri-Tac glue to stick those down, because these jemmies do not have any adhesive on the back. They really do need some kind of adhesive to stick down to the card. So I am using my Fabri-Tac, and that worked fantastic. They stuck down, no problem, dried, it was great. So those are the 3 cards that I ended up making in this video. I hope you guys do like this Scrap Your Stash series. To use up those scraps, make some cards. I hope this was fun to follow along with. If you guys want to watch that longer version of the video, feel free to check that out as well. I will have it linked down below. This one is the shorter one, so I hope you guys appreciate that also. And yeah, let me know which card is your favorite, and I will see you guys in my next crafty video. All links are down in the description box, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!